I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to show you what it was really like aboard the ship they called Unsinkable, and whether you would have made it out alive. Look at this. Coal-fired boilers, engines the size of houses. In 1912, this ship was the most advanced machine humanity had ever built. First class had a swimming pool, a gymnasium, 5-course dinners every night. For some passengers, this crossing felt more like a floating palace.
This is the grand staircase. Carved oak, a glass dome overhead, and a clock.
The first-class dining saloon could seat over 500 guests at once, lit by soft electric light beneath an aught ceiling.
This was the smoking room, reserved for men only, where deals were made and cigars burned late into the night.
Down here, space was tight and access to the upper decks was limited. Most third-class passengers were ignorants chasing a new life in America. Third Class had just a handful of shared bathrooms for dozens of passengers, a sharp contrast to the private baths just a few decks up. This is the wireless room. Other ships sent ice warnings that night. But with so much traffic, some messages never reached the bridge in time. People called this ship Unsinkable. It was never an official claim, just a reputation that grew on its own. And that reputation would cost lives tonight. At 11:40 p.m. the ship strikes an iceberg. Most passengers barely feel it, just a shudder, then quiet. Almost no one on board realizes what just happened. Minutes pass, and still barely anyone panics. Why would they? Everyone had been told this ship couldn't sink. That belief will cost precious time tonight. The corridors are filling with people now, moving quickly, unsure exactly where to go, following whatever crew member speaks first. There was an 8-piece orchestra on board, led by Wallace Hartley. Many survivors later said they kept playing as the chaos spread. None of the musicians survived.
This lifeboat could carry 65 people. It leaves with 28. Many passengers still believed staying aboard was safer than trusting a small boat over open water. If you'd run to this side of the ship, the rule was strict, women and children only. Men were turned away, even when sets sat empty. But if you'd run to this side instead, the rule bent. Men were allowed aboard if no women were nearby. Same night, same ship, different fate. The lifeboats could carry 1,178 people. Only 76 made it aboard. That gap, right there, is the most heartbreaking number of this entire night.
For those left in the water, the cold worked fast. Faster than anyone expected. Within minutes, most of them had no strength left to hold on.
Hours away, the Carpathia picks up the distress call and changes course immediately, racing through the dark to reach whoever it can. Days later, the survivors reach New York. Families wait on the docks, not yet knowing who's on board and who isn't. This disaster changed maritime law forever. New rules required enough lifeboats for everyone aboard, and around-the-clock radio watch, lessons written in tragedy. I've walked through a lot of history with you. This one stays with me the most, because so much of it came down to luck. Thanks for coming along.